Appreciate everybody being here. You've got your minutes from our last meeting before you. And I'm seeking a motion for approval.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Discussions, corrections, additions?
I had one comment on
Mr. Smith.
on the section that mentioned that paragraph number 7. I'm sorry, paragraph F on the last page. It mentions that Ms. Carter called upon George Hawthorne. I wasn't sure he was at that last meeting we had. I was thinking he was out of pocket because of something relating to his family.
His father died.
He wasn't here, was he?
He wasn't at the EDO meeting.
Okay,
But he
but
was
he
here.
was at this meeting.
He was at full board meeting.
Okay,
He
gotcha.
presented the EDO report.
Okay, that's a senior moment. I'm sorry.
You're welcome to him. Any other corrections, additions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're going to skip open forum just for a second because we have the privilege of having our mayor, Ashton Hayward, with us today. And the agenda item after open forum is going to be talking about the maintenance agreement. There was a little discussion last time of actually who we are hiring. And David here, Flaherty did a great presentation, but there was talk about, what's involved with the mayor and all that. And I made the comment, that's who we're hiring. We're hiring the city, we're hiring the mayor and all his staff. And I asked him to come say a few words, and I know he's got another meeting he had to go to. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon. I just want to say thanks to all the board members, truly, for what you've done. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. April 5th, we're throwing out the first pitch. The council members that serve on the board and all you folks that have volunteered. And I just want to say thank you. And we're looking forward to you being a client of the city's and working hard to make sure this is a success. And I just wanted y'all to know it and hear it from my mouth. And I'm sure many of the council members have told you that, but I wanted to come down here personally and say thank you and that we look forward to you being a client. And I know this will be successful and looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And with that, we'll go right into open forum. I've got a stack of cards here, and we'll start with Sherry Mouton. Welcome.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Sherry Mouton. I am a community member here in Pensacola, Florida, and this is Alan Young. He's my fiance, and we're here today because we want to be a part of the opening pitch, the April 5th. We want to be a food cart vendor at the Maritime Park. We understand from the meetings that we have attended that there's going to be a certain amount of space that's going to be allotted for vendors. So we're here today to get information. We attended the meeting last night, and we did pose some questions, and they explained to us that this definitely, if you will, is the big meeting. What we wanted to know was what is the process for becoming a food cart vendor for the Maritime Park. Also the fees associated with using the space and the licenses, as well as the number of vendors that you all are going to allow to have at the Maritime Park. And then also to what type of permits we will need to use, and then the size carts that you are allowing, as well as the concession trailers. So we were told yesterday by Sherry in the license office that right now there is no such thing as a food cart vendor in the city of Pensacola. And so she said she would not be able to issue a license that does not exist. And so we spoke directly to Mr. Spears, and Mr. Spears was very helpful. He told us the same thing, that the license does not exist. However, last night we did learn that there may be some type of information as far as allowing vendors a special permit, like the special event permit, and they said that they would be reviewing that process. So we're here today because we want to be a part of history. We want to be a part of the Maritime Park, and we want to, of course, make money. That's our intent. But also to be a part of history and to give back to the community. So Our main question is the process on how to become a food cart vendor. And I thank you for your time today. And Alan, did you want to say something?
No more than my name is Alan Young, and I'm an offshore supply boat captain, out of work due to the BP oil spill, and looking for a new adventure.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Ms. Mouton, Dr. Jones.
Do you have a company organized, or are you just individuals?
Right now, sir, because we want to become food vendors, we don't have a restaurant or anything like that. However, our goal is to use the capital that we do have to start up. We've already done our research and everything, but no, sir, we're not an established restaurant right now.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. Ms. Young, at my 1 o'clock in the very back of the room is Dave Flaherty, and he is working. We're working on some of the stuff we're approving. I'm sorry. I pointed at Dick Barker. I'm blind. Dave Flaherty's to my 11 o'clock over there with his hand raised
Yes,
back
sir.
there in the back. We're going over that now. What we're going to approve today is or talk about today is the management, and we're still working on, for next month, some fee structure for amphitheater and rentals and all that. Dave, is that accurate? But if you'll talk to him, he'll
Yes,
be your
sir.
source of information.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
Chairman,
Ms. Carter.
one question for Ms. Sherry. Ms. Sherry, I just want to make sure you're aware, Mr. Flaherty, you might be able to answer that. Since we're going to have this really short window between the keys being given to the Wahoos and the April 5th, are you, I just want you to be prepared, because I do not want you to be disappointed. Are you ready if Mr. Flaherty and them gave us the information to start? I mean, are you ready? Do you think you're ready?
Yes, ma'am. We definitely will be ready. We've made a commitment that we want to be a part of history, and yes, ma'am, we'll definitely be ready if we get the opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then I guess my question to Dave, you probably have thought of it already. You realize that for that first couple of days, that small window, I'm going to ask you, what are we going to do to make sure that we can get, what is that going to look like, and can vendors like Ms. Sherry and her fiance be a part of that? Is that something that's realistic, or perhaps something that is pie in the sky?
Well, let me try to answer it this way. One is we have spent the last couple of weeks really working hard on the parking plan and making sure we understood where the parking lots were, and coming up with our plan that we're going to be presenting to you shortly in the next week or so, or whenever the next meeting might be. So we've pretty much got that cleared up. It's done. Now we're turning our attention to the kiosks and the vendors. A little bit of a question mark about when. Certainly we want to be up and running before the 1st of June. The grand opening, I'm sure you've heard by now, is June 9th of the entire park. The stadium is opening sooner because baseball starts sooner. I'm not sure we're going to be prepared for the early part of the baseball season, and that's really a discussion I think that I need to have with the Wahoos about what they're potentially going to want to see something in the park, or, as you know, they've got concessions for the entire ball stadium. So that's something I want to talk with them about. But clearly, we are working hard now, and we'll turn our attention to establishing the guidelines and procedures and policies for the vendors and the kiosks that will be in the park. I just can't give you a date at the moment about when that will officially start.
So that probably won't be, I just want her to know that it probably won't be the 5th.
I seriously doubt it. I think our interest has always been to try to be ready when we open the park, the entire park, as opposed to just the stadium. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next up is Nathaniel Fountain. Welcome.
How you doing? My name is Nathaniel Fountain. I just want to do a recap of what was told to me from Mr. Spears about the vending machines. That you all are taking out, for the city, it's taking out $500 interest fee and a 33% of the earning from the vending machines. And I need to know how much would the ballpark take out? Determine,
This is for vending machines in the stadium?
Right.
Mr. Fountain, when we discussed the ideas of when we were putting the program together, that's what Mr. Flaherty is creating the rules and the policies for. They'll come back to the board will establish that, and then you will be anyone will know what the rules are for the vending program. You would not have any opportunity inside the stadium. The baseball team already has that opportunity. The vending opportunities that we have available are outside the stadium in the park spaces around the amphitheater. And so that's what we were in discussions about.
Okay, when will we have the last day?
Mr. Flaherty right back there can give you the information that he's sharing with Ms. Mouton.
Okay.
Exact same program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Fountain. Next up, Bob Sweeble. Welcome.
My name is Bob Sweeble, and I live in Navarre. Thank you, board members, for giving me a couple of minutes here. Just want to make sure that we're still on June 5th, and is that in concrete?
For what date?
For the opening date of the park.
June 9th.
June the 9th.
June 9th, it's Saturday.
Okay, because I read something in the paper about it yesterday, and I was surprised to read what I read. But
What did it say? I didn't read it.
I thought it said the 5th. Jamie, can you correct me? What is it said the 9th? Okay.
Jamie pulled that date out of me, hook, line, and sinker, but that's it. June 9th is where we are. We're still lining up some entertainment and some other things, but the date is as much concrete as we can put around it at this point.
Okay. The next question I have is about the breakwater. I read something about the breakwater again. What can you tell us or keep us ahead of what's going on with the breakwater? How are we doing with the permits, and what's the schedule like for the latest schedule that we have that we're working to and committed to and all that good stuff? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for being here, and thank you for your input as always. We, the breakwater is still in permitting stage. The money is set aside to do the breakwater, $2 million. We, I've talked to the Army Corps several times. There is an issue, a court issue that's in the state of Florida that has nothing to do with our issue. But until that is resolved by the colonel, they are not issuing any permits that have any similar likeness to it. And we have a similar likeness to this permit that is court ruled upon. Until they decide if they're going to appeal that or not, they're not looking at any of these other permits. I have talked to them. The Army Corps is the Army Corps, and we have politely said that we're in the queue, and there's others too that are kind of in our same boat, that their projects are being held up. Fortunately, it's not costing us. There's a lot of people it's costing a lot of money every day waiting on this. Fortunately, that's not our case, other than we sure would like to have the breakwater. But that's the issue on that, and we're continuing to work on that where we are. Thank you. That's all the cards I have. If nobody's else here, we're going to move on to action items. We have. Yes, sir. Do you have a card?
I was just going to fill it out.
All right. Well, you can go ahead and talk and fill it out afterwards. Just state your name, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Lenny Tarantino. I'm here representing transportation. My company is a Fleet Limo Services, and I've been in this area since 1986 and been working in the transportation limousine company since the year 1990 and been in my own business since 2000. And I wanted to know, we had questions. There's a couple other companies that are here, and I guess I'll speak for all of us, is we just want to know pretty much if there is a plan intact for transportation, and that means everything from moving people from the parking areas to the ballpark, also from the airport, meaning that any type of executives coming in from the Cincinnati Reds organization, any ball players that need to be moved, if they get moved to another division and they have to get transported, all of these different things. There's so many different aspects of transportation. Has that been addressed, and is there anything that we can find out today that will help us to be part of this wonderful project that I know I've been looking forward to since I moved there, because baseball is a big thing in this town.
Great question. I don't think there's anybody here from the Pensacola baseball, or is there? And I'm not sure because there will be a lot of people coming in and out, and it's going to be a benefit to everybody in the industry, I think. But I don't know of a plan that they have, and as far as our plan through parking and if we're going to have shuttles or any of that stuff, that's still a work in progress as well, as far as I know. Dr. Jones.
Would you be looking for an exclusive contract for transportation, or just
On
your own as with taxis?
Honestly, I wouldn't have no problem with sharing with other companies, okay? Because I've worked in this town, like I said, for 20 years in transportation business, and I recognize some of the other owners that have been in business longer than I have been in this business, and I feel that they're all competent enough to help make this project successful from the transportation end. So I have no problem with sharing a part of it and working towards an opportunity to get a contract. Absolutely. I mean, you always like to know that you're concrete and involved in an organization of this type, or an organizational project of this type. So, yeah, somewhere down the road, I would love to have that opportunity. But at this particular point, I don't know if there's time to sit down and worry about contracts. I mean, I think there's a lot of loose ends right now, from what I can see, on the transportation ends, because there's so many aspects of it, from the airport to, like I said, to just, transporting people from the parking lots to the stadium itself. So we definitely want to be part of it. So if you can keep us at least abreast of, or tell us how we can stay abreast of what's going on, that would be very helpful. I want to first thank Ms. Carter, though, because if it wasn't for Ms. Carter, I don't think I'd have the opportunity to be here right now, because it was through the equal opportunities that I made my attempt to open the doors up, and I want to thank that program, because I really think that program was helpful to anyone that's been part of it. So,
well, we appreciate you coming today. I would also encourage you, as we develop our plan for the whole park, to contact somebody through the Pensacola Wahoos. And I'm sure you can go on their website and find a name to contact.
I've been in contact with them. I've had a meeting with them. That was prior to Talmadge and Neri moving on to the Jacksonville University. And I sat in with Van and with Talmadge, and at that point they had no idea. They were still throwing it around, and I don't know where it's at with them right now. And I'm sure it's difficult to get an answer at this point. I couldn't even find out where my seats were. I bought 2 season tickets and left a message for Van. She is so busy. From what I was told by George, is that she spends more time at the stadium than doing anything else. So everybody is really kind of like on edge to get everything, dot their I's and cross their T's, because there's a lot that still is, I'm sure, unsettled, and that's why we're here today. We're here to try to help out.
And I appreciate you being here. Lenny, what's your last name again?
Tarantino, just like the director from Pulp Fiction.
You were great in that movie, by the way.
No, it was Kill Bill. I was better in that
one. Quentin Tarantino had to dispose of the body. But we appreciate you being here. I would encourage you to keep contacting them. I think Van, who's in charge of their marketing and sponsors, is out there with a nail apron today and get this thing moving forward, and we get to close. But I think it's going to help everybody. There's going to be a lot of people coming in town all the time. Not only the Reds organization, you got the other teams, whoever are playing. As the Montgomery Biscuits roll in here, and their people come in, and it's going to be exciting. And I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Anybody else open forum? And I want to say while we're there, Ms. Carter.
I just wanted to make a comment, because something I just want to make sure that I heard correctly. Just for a point of clarity. So what we're looking is that we'll have the Wahoo in the stadium on the 31st, and they're revving up to get ready for their first game, but not necessarily everything outside the stadium, which is where a lot of these people are looking to do. That's number one. And then the other thing is, there are 2 opportunities here. There's the Wahoo's opportunity for example, transportation, and there's the city's contract that we're going to be talking about today.
Correct.
That's important for people to know. That's 2 opportunities. That's awesome.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that's correct.
That's correct. And more opportunities as the private sector comes in and takes over these parcels that we're all responsible for, where more and more jobs will be created. And there's stuff on the board now, 80 jobs, 100 jobs of some of this stuff. And we're not in the best real estate times, but we're trying to get through there. But yes, the the stadium again, first pitch April 5th, and then the park will open June 9th. The park better be ready before June 9th, but our grand opening will be then. And we'll hear from COR in a minute, but as we get the grass down, it takes a little time to. Steve Dana said if we put 1,000 people on top of the grass today it's planted, we'll have to replant grass. So we want it to get rooted and things like that. So that's how a group came up, led by Mr. Asmar, came up with the June 9th date, and it's exciting. And I was in Tallahassee talking to some people yesterday of trying to get them to come over, unnamed people from Tallahassee, and I think they're coming, and we'll have a big grand opening. A lot of people, and should be a great event for the city. And I want to say, you had, is that all your
Yeah, I just think that that's a good thing for the people who are looking to be a part of it. They have that little bit of window to have more time to make sure that they're ready, and not
Correct.
to expect it to happen on the 5th, but to understand it just gives us more time to get it right, not be disappointed or anything. I just want to be clear on that.
I appreciate that. I tell you, we're living and breathing this every day, everybody on this committee, everybody in this room, and you really got to step back. I had somebody from Panama City in town last week, and I had a meeting upstairs, and never mentioned baseball to him, never mentioned what we were doing over here. It was a obscure thing that we had to talk about. Somebody asked me to help him, and when we got off on the 7th floor and looked out over that park, I mean, that just dominated the next hour of conversation, and what, he's doing some stuff in Panama City, and I said, build your own, we'll play y'all, whatever you want to get stadium. But, I mean, it really is when you really step back and look at what we have, and he said he would kill to have something like that down there. And the lights came on 3 weeks ago, I guess this Thursday. I went out there the night they turned those on, and it's just exciting. If you haven't been out there lately, get with Ed and go out there, not only the board, but the community as a whole. It's exciting, and we're very close. All right, with that, we will move along to action items, and I'm assuming we have the annual 1990 tax return, O'Sullivan Creel, and the only person I see here is Carrie Litton. So I assume you're doing that report, I hope. We'd much rather hear from you than Mort.
Mr. Chairman, we forwarded the 990 tax return to the board a week or so ago for your review and comment, and Ms. Litton is here to answer any questions the board may have, but we do need formal approval of that to send it to the IRS.
Move approval. Second.
Don't we want to hear from Ms. Litton at all? It's just so nice not to have Mort in here or somebody else from there. Y'all have made a merger, right? Tell us about that, briefly. You don't have to.
You can sit right there.
Warren Averett, O'Sullivan Creel, a firm out of Birmingham and of Montgomery, and we're almost pushing 600 employees.
600 employees.
Yeah, it's very exciting, very exciting. It's a really good fit, I think. It's going to be a very good firm fit for all of us, more opportunities.
Congratulations. All right.
And there were no questions. I'm sure that maybe after you look at it.
Motion approval, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign.
Thank you for attending.
The father of her children has hit a home run in a World Series game. I think that's pretty exciting that you're here talking about baseball.
Oh, she's
Who's that from? Scott. Let's get out by 2 then. Ms. Scott has to leave at 2, and I know Councilman Johnson's trying to leave early too. All right, next item is the operations and maintenance contract with the City of Pensacola. That came out late yesterday. And we have both Mr. Barker and Mr. Asmar here, who's hiding back there, but I see him. Mr. Barker, also known as Mr. Flaherty. But y'all have got that before you. We are still working on fee structure, which we're going to send to Councilman Johnson's committee, is going to take that up as far as, amphitheater and some of the things we've just talked about earlier today, and that'll come back to us in March. But this is a honing in on the things that we are contracting with the city. And there's still a few little tweaks in there, but in concept, this is what it is. I still need to talk to Mr. Asmar about a couple of fees he keeps putting back in on me. But other than that, we're good. Mr. Baker.
I know you've talked about that the park's really generally going to open the first week of June, but in our EBO meeting the other night, a lot of these people who are interested in being participants in contracts or vendors and all that were kind of being told that not a thing much could happen until this is approved and executed. Are we kind of postponing this another month?
With the fee structure?
Or, well, whatever it would be, that we would have enough of a contract with the city that kind of effort could go on. Contracts be discussed and negotiated.
And I think that, in working, we approved this, that we're starting to get a working document. The fee structure is something that still has to go. We still got to figure out, what we're charging on the amphitheater, and I know Mr. Flaherty's got a lot of information on that. We're getting hit with nonprofits asking what kind of discount we're giving. We're looking at, just like we talked about, the man was asking about vending machines and carts and all that. I just don't think we're prepared for discuss it at this point. Is that right, Mr. Flaherty?
And Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, those aspects are scope of work that's covered by this contract. Those are deliverables to us. That's why they would come after this particular agreement.
Ms. Carter.
I talked about this when we were talking about who to choose, and I really feel like the last time we were faced with making a decision on someone, we have the covenant, which they addressed, but we recognize in hindsight that because it didn't have any teeth, it didn't have any numbers, it didn't have any legalities, that, it is something that we aspire to do, and that's fine. I think we do. I think we're fully committed as a community and as a city. I would like to take the opportunity, and I asked, I think the respondents to the RFP, would they have a problem with putting something in the document that says there's a goal of whatever it is, and I just wanted to know if Mr. Flaherty and his staff and them have discussed it, because this is the time to put any concrete numbers or requirements for the covenant. If we don't have it, it's going to be the same thing it was before. We will or we won't. It's expired. It really has nothing that says we're really going to work on it and here's how. And I realize you may not have all the answers to that, but I do think that it's important for us as a board not to make that misstep again.
Would you like Mr. Flaherty to address that? Or Mr. Asmar? Thank you for being here today, Mr. Asmar.
Mr. Chairman, it's my honor and privilege to be here. To answer your question, the contract that you spoke about is by and between you and the community for the Maritime Park. The city supports diversity, unquestionable. That's the reason why we have proposed bringing back this vendor management plan back to you, so that you can ensure that the CMPA's commitments are met. I can't speak for the rest of the city council. The agreement before you once you approve it, has to go to the city council for their approval. I can't speak on behalf of the city council as to what they want to do, but obviously, the city is all about diversity and equality. In fact, the mayor has engaged a disparity study which comes out May 29th, I believe. So I think we can address that issue in the vendor management plan.
And I can appreciate that, and I've talked to you before I even got on the board. And I think that, yes, you guys have done a great job, and I know personally and have helped to do that. But I do believe, since we are the client, and we have always said that we were committed to the covenant, we as a board really want to try and get this right. It would not be in any way wrong to put some general numbers. I mean, we have some baseline numbers right now we can use from the city, from the Small Business Administration, from the EBO. We have 13.7%. We have the aspiration goal of 33%. Again, I say, for us moving forward, for people to believe in us again. I'm not asking for great numbers, but I am asking for something in this agreement that says we are going to work for it and we're going to come back with you with a plan.
Well, Ms. Carter, I think I would address it this way. I think we have mutual goals that are the same, but to the extent that they may conflict with what the disparity study the city is doing, then I would be reluctant to, because it could be greater. Yep. And there could be policies that are even more important than others. So, I think we have mutual goals. I'm just not sure how do we get there? This contract needs to be signed, and then, of course, we have the May 29th disparity study comes out. And so the mayor and the city council are committed to that, and they need to discuss those policies. But I'm willing to provide or to assist you in any way in presenting this to the city council in the format that you want. I just wanted to let you know that you may be asking for something too small when you could get more at the, after the disparity study's out, so.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because as I talked to people, and they said, well, what figure would you use? You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and aim too small. And I think the disparity study would be, I think that having a range, we may have a minimum of this, but we can put in a contract anything we want. But we have to put something that says, we know we got a benchmark with the city and the Contractors Academy somewhere between 10 and 13.7%. We're going to do a minimum of whatever that minimum is, and we're going to work toward whatever the MGT, because I'm going to be helping with that amount is, and come and revisit it at a certain time, every 6 months, every year. And I'm willing to work with you, and I knew this was going to come up, and I've tried in my own little way to figure out an answer, but I think that it's incumbent on us, all of us, to put something in here that at least is a minimum that we need to shoot for, so we can show the community that we're going to work toward it. We know we can do 10% because we're doing it. We know that. So if that's the number, I'm fine. But it's got to be something that you're comfortable with, that we're comfortable with, that we know we can make it, and then put that range there. And like I said, revisit it. And I'm asking for your help, because if we don't do it, then it's almost like, here we go again, and
Sure.
we just, we forgot it.
Well, let me, we can talk about this as a separate subject that we could go on and talk about it, because I'm sure a lot of people have different objectives and goals. I'll ask you this. Are you talking about a dollar amount? Are you talking about a number, a select vendors? Are you talking about subcontractors? Are you talking, in order to assist you in that effort, I think that we probably need to determine what categories you want, whether it's a financial goal or a numbers goal. But I think the city is committed in that diversity objective. My thinking was, for sake of time, Ms. Carter, is that we can deal with that in whatever vendor program that we bring back for your approval, which has to come back to this board. So if you're looking for commitment in vendors or the vendor program, then that needs to come back at a later date for your approval and not necessarily be done in this particular agreement.
You're right, but in the covenant, it says in all aspects. The last time the misstep we made, we only did in construction. Our soft cost figures are nebulous. It's 0.02. The covenant was meant in every aspect. So while I understand what you're saying, I think a conversation, maybe we can talk and maybe bring something back to the board so we don't keep having this back and forth. I do think that we can come up with something that will give us a baseline for this board to make a decision on. Because coming back and just doing vendors is just vendors. It's every aspect. It's in management, it's in jobs, it's what the covenant, spirit of the covenant said, that there's going to be diversity throughout and beyond. And we've never really accomplished that with the covenant as written, and now we have an opportunity to do something. And I realize this, I just dropped a big old pink elephant in your lap, but I have confidence in this board.
Well, and I agree with Ms. Carter, not to cut you off there. I certainly have confidence, and I think we just heard Mr. Asmar on the record that they're going to do what they need to do, and if the disparity study, after the disparity study comes in, will help shed some light as well. I have full confidence in the city that they will continue that, and if it's not where we need it to be, we can readdress it. We've had the city tell us they're going to do the right thing on that.
So are you saying, what are you saying? It is not important for us to put something in this document. We're going to vote on this today. I want something to say, whatever we intend to do to get us to that goal, whatever it is, rather than leave it out, because there's nothing in it. I read it twice. What do you think I should?
Let me put you on hold. Mr. Hawthorne's been patiently sitting there. Since y'all work as a team now, I'll call on.
What I think is probably an easy solution is that, pursuant to the terms of the Equal Business Opportunity Program, which very specifically states that all subcontractors and contractors of the CMPA would have to follow the Equal Business Opportunity Programming guidelines, and it does mention through operations management and that. So if you would just reference within your document that you'll aspire to follow the good faith efforts of the the Equal Business Opportunity Program that might fit what you need, because that is the only binding document that has a policy and procedures of how you get to those numbers that you're speaking of. And then by incorporating that as a reference to that document, because under the EBO agreement, again, it says that all subcontractors and contractors of the CMPA would abide by those agreements. So that may get you where you need to go without having that, the additional aspirational goals set in stone. Just reference the document that you're already working with under.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Carter. We're going to discuss it in our report because we've done the report for everyone it was sent out. And the EBO agreement didn't do what we wanted to do it either. We have disparity in who got hired. We don't have any, we have a lot of lacking. So I can't, while I understand the concept of what he's saying, and I agree that that's what we need to do, it still lacks specificity. And that's what, if we do not have it, it will still be aspirational, or else the numbers in the EBO results would have been more. Something was lacking in that document. I don't care if it's accountability or missteps or whatever. My concern is that that document needs to be adjusted, or we need to massage it so it's exactly what we want is clear. I don't care how small it is. It can be minute, but whatever it is, I want it to be something that we know that it's a good, clear demonstration of minority inclusion. And I'm not an attorney, so I'm kind of leaning on my attorneys in the House and your wealth of knowledge, and Collier, you've been doing stuff like this forever. What is it that we need to put in there that would meet the needs of our covenant with the community? And we do have some numbers as a baseline, but give that flexibility, like Mr. Asmar said, to use the disparity numbers when it comes down.
Dr. Jones.
We have discussed this before, and what you're also looking for is enforceability and perhaps penalties. We've discussed that before.
Okay. Councilman Pratt.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on this real fast. My understanding from watching this for a while, the city government can't agree to the covenant. That's why it works well to have the CMPA board. When I first got on council, a lot of people said to me, why do we even have the CMPA? And I said, well, the ultimate reason, the thing the CMPA does that the city can't do is the covenant. Because the city, that's why the city's doing the disparity study. The city cannot have preferential hiring. And so we can put it in, but then the city can't agree to it. So,
my question to you is, and that has come up a lot with us choosing the city, and I think it was just at the EBO meeting, they said, forget the city being the city. This is a client relationship. Now, I guess what I don't understand is, how is it a client, they're our client, and we can do whatever we want because we still hold the authority, and yet you bring the city as saying the city never agreed to it. I know the city never agreed to it. In fact, I've said to a lot of people, don't fuss at the mayor. They didn't do anything. But as the CMPA board, that's our job to make sure that we kind of walk through that very gray thing. So are we responsible to the city for this contract? Are they the ultimate decision maker, or are we?
Right, and I guess, you did raise a good point. If the city is acting as our client, can we, and that might get into some bizarre legal nebulous, but I was just pointing out that all along I've understood the city cannot make preferential promises, and so I don't know how this thing fits within the
And I understand, Ms. Carter, where you're saying about it's still us and we're their client, but City Council still is not going to be able to prove that. Mr. Asmar, do you have any language that you could put in?
Mr. Chairman, members, Ms. Pratt is correct. That's the reason why you have the finding of fact through the disparity study, which allows the city. But let me back up and say, governments in general are supposed to adhere to federal law, which is treat everyone equally. And so through cases, Supreme Court cases, that in order to provide preferential treatment, in this particular case, you have to have a finding of fact, which is why we're going through this disparity study. Once that disparity shows a deficiency in some respects of preferential treatment one way or the other, then it's a policy-making body, the City Council, can make recommendations of how to correct it, take the corrective actions. But until then, the city cannot, and generally, whether as a client or otherwise, enter into a contract that exposes them to that particular liability, which is why I was encouraging for us to wait to the findings of fact. My understanding is, as Mr. Hawthorne has suggested, that as a vendor, a subcontractor or a contractor of yours, you have certain policies that we, would have to assume to some extent, to the extent that we're able to. So I don't believe there's any contract language that I can place in here to appease you, other than the fact that we're committed to work toward a common goal, and that common goal can be achieved and will have to be achieved through the city once the disparity study is completed. So that's. I know you're disappointed, and I understand and can appreciate where you want to go, but I just don't think that we're able to do that now at this time.
Okay, actually, I'm not disappointed. I'm so happy we're having this conversation because somebody had to bring it up. So I just did it because, we got to walk through this. We're at the end of this thing. One of the challenges we had about choosing the city is that we could stay in control of our agreement with the covenant with the community, which has been one big challenge. And now I hear from you that, well, that's, no matter what, it is what it is, and we can't, as a city, do that because it is what it is. So that was one of the reasons why we didn't want to be in this situation where we couldn't tell our client what exactly we wanted, be it numbers or whatever. But I'll take, if you're willing to help me, massaging the EVO wording, putting something in there to talk about the future MGT study, so that it's in there saying that we're going to look at that and we're going to use those figures. However, right now we don't know it. Rather than putting nothing in there, and some words about the covenant, and that's it. I mean, you can understand contract language, and I've been on the other side of it where I didn't say anything. I regretted not putting something in there that says we're going to do this, and then this time we're going to come back and look at it. If we don't put anything in there, it's like it never happened. There's nothing to hold anybody accountable to, including anybody working with us. And we have to do something in this case. And again, I don't want to take too much of everybody's time, but I'm asking everybody to roll around the thought of what that might look like, and I'm willing to sit down with you and scribe something and make that happen. But having nothing, we're putting ourselves exactly where we were after the fact and not being able to hold anybody accountable for anything. And that's just the way I feel about it.
Ms. Scott.
Oh, I see City Councilman Gerald. I noticed he was back there. I just wanted to kind of get his input since he was on the City Council regarding his thoughts on what the city can do and cannot do and just where he stands.
Councilman Gerald's welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I'm happy that I'm here this afternoon. And it reminds me, and I generally share with you folks on occasion things that my mom used to say to me, that you're barking up the wrong tree. The pre-disparity study that was done in 2007, there is sufficient evidence in that computation of information that will address exactly what Ms. Carter is referring to. The evidence or the fact or the proof of what is going on in the city of Pensacola was discovered and documented in the pre-disparity study, which we spent $50,000 on. I would encourage you to review that report, and you will find what you're looking for. You'll find an opportunity. You'll find the absence of inclusion in that study that will give you the kind of guidance that you need to remedy or to solve the question that's on the table right now. But I do believe, and I can assure you, a thorough review of the findings and the report from MGT as it relates to the pre-disparity study will give you sufficient information and documentation to respond to her question, and then therefore include something in the contract that will address it, and you won't have to go back and do it. Now, when we get the results of the full disparity study, since not a whole lot has changed since then, it is my feeling that you're going to find the same or similar evidence as to what has been going on and the level of inclusion and participation in the various programs. But that would be a source of reference that will guide you as a committee in the development of the contract and the documentation of your intent. Questions? But that's where the answer is. We've already done a pre-disparity study. There are certain things that we know already. And if you look in that book, you will see what the absence and what the city of Pensacola's performance actually has been. And you can take from that those numbers and determine what numbers you need to insert that will address the concern that we have at this point.
Councilman Gerald, are you saying that when the report comes out that the city then automatically has to follow that?
No, what I hope happens with the disparity study is that we will identify areas in which we can change that will probably require an ordinance, since we don't have the power to have preferential treatment in any way, shape, or form anymore, since we've already decided that's where we want to go in the future. But I do believe that the information that you will get from the MGT report will be the same as the pre-disparity study. It comes with the findings, and it also lists remedies and recommendations of things that we can do that will solve our problems.
Well, and along that line, are you saying that will take care of this problem then?
I believe that it will. It would give you a basis, a guideline. It would give you a benchmark from which to make your decision as to what number you would like to insert. And keep in mind that the disparity study, that the results that you're going to receive will deal primarily with procurement. It is not based on the total population of African American residents in the city of Pensacola. It will deal with the total number of the population of people who are in business and who offer goods and services to the city of Pensacola. So that number will be determined to be slightly lower than what we would think when we look at the general population is 30 1/3 or 33 1/3, whatever it is today. And that, at the time it was reported out, it was, we had a different census number at that time. So that number has dropped slightly. But I would encourage you to look at the recommendations that are also in that package from MDT as it relates to the pre-disparity study that will give you a point of reference.
So are you saying that
Mr. Scott.
if we don't put a number in there, that the issue with the preferential treatment, which the city cannot enter into an agreement with, as long as we don't put a number in there, we can reconcile the two? That's where I'm having a challenge with. How do you reconcile what the city can do in terms of preferential treatment and what's in the disparity study in terms of recommendations if it doesn't have numbers attached to it?
Well, then that goes back to the other question. It won't be a matter of what the city can do. It will be a matter of what the CMPA can do. Since the agreement is between you guys, the community, and the covenant is with the community, not with city council. So if CMPA takes the opportunity to adjust and to do things accordingly, it would not have an impact on the entire city, but it would certainly have an impact on this particular project. And this project was conceived in a manner in which there would be an opportunity to see what we can do. I don't know what level of performance we've had thus far, but everybody, I believe, would be in favor of seeing it improve. And if you take a real good look at the remedies and the recommendations from MGT, my concern as a council member and our alleged failure as a council was the full implementation of the recommendations that we received. So if we look at the recommendations, I believe that there are remedies there that will answer this question, and we can insert a number, at least a goal to focus on. And then at some time in the future, we'll have the opportunity to look back to see how well we did. But some of the answer to what you're asking here today is included in the previous pre-disparity study, which was accompanied by recommendations and things that we could do to rectify the concerns that we have here in the city of Pensacola.
Dr. Jones.
Is that pre-disparity study available?
Yes, not only is it available, it's online, and it's also through, I guess, Elaine Major or any of city staff or the clerk could get each of you a copy of it for your review to find out where we've gone, what we've looked at, what was discovered by MGT. And as I said, it gives us remedies and recommendations, not things that we have to do, but things that we could do. So the committee takes a look at all of that information, and I think you'll have your answer there.
Thank you, and I think Ms. Scott and I are kind of on the same page. Will this then take care of, as this comes out, that this will take care of this, and that it'll show what the city can and can't do at that point?
Exactly.
And Mr. Hawthorne has been patiently waiting, and I'm going to try to move this, only that I'm going to lose my quorum here.
Well, I'm going to try to just give you a one sentence that'll probably solve all of it. If you put in there language that states something to the effect that the manager will aspire to adhere to the Equal Business Opportunity Program Agreement and the aspirational goals as attached in accordance with applicable federal law, that should cover everything, because then what it does, it attaches the goals, the aspirational goals, it attaches the EBO agreement to it, but it also gives the city the flexibility to have to follow the applicable federal law. That I think that will get you, as opposed to putting a number in there that is a set aside, which will not be able to pass under applicable federal law, because we do not have the findings of fact. And if you wait until you have an MGT or a MGT finding in the disparity study, I can guarantee you that those goals are going to be less than the aspirational goals that are already set in the EBO agreement.
Councilman Pratt, do you think that would suffice?
I'm not going to play lawyer, but I mean, you know, the city has to follow federal rules, and so therefore they can't have set-asides. That's as I understand it, until the disparity study comes, and then based on the findings of that, then the city can implement them. So if then, you know, if we have this agreement with the city, and in 3 months the city gets the disparity study back, and there are things that the city takes into account suddenly because we can start saying set-asides, then the city would be doing that. But I don't think we, as a board or the city, whichever person I am right now, can put that in the agreement right now, because the city has to follow federal law, so they can't abide by this. And Mr. Geralds was also referring to the pre-disparity study, which is completed, but that had mostly recommendations about things that are within federal law, like preferential small business, which tend to be more likely represented by minorities, but it doesn't address the covenant as clearly.
I'm going to tell you two things.
Ms. Carter.
Two things I know. In the report that even the report today from Parks and Recs, they use SBE goals. And those are the goals you guys have had forever. And they were not aspirational, they were goals. And they met and exceeded them and increased. They can show a history. Why can't we use those until the disparity study is finalized, just as something to put in there as a placeholder?
Yeah,
because that's something you guys agree anyway.
Right. You could put SBE, but not minority.
I'm just saying, because the African American Directory is a part of that. I did the workshops, and there was only 2 concessions. Now there's 4. So John Jones is right. That was just based on procurement goods and services. Now we're talking about more expansive. The MGT is only going to deal with procurement. So the numbers are going to be a little different, probably less. But I would accept that at least using what we're using now and have been since 2008 be a placeholder. And then when that MGT comes out, then we can insert whatever that is. That at least says it's important to us, it's acceptable to the city, everybody's happy, and we can get this done.
And yeah, I mean, we just can't, my understanding, the city can't have aspirational goals about minority hiring. It can have aspirational goals about small business. And so, I mean, if people are content making it just small business, then I can't speak for the whole city. There are plenty of people who know the stuff better than I.
I'm going to ask for a motion, if somebody wants to make a motion.
Okay. You want me to try a stab at one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make a stab at a motion, and feel free to help. I make a motion that we insert into the agreement the SBE goals and aspirations as a placeholder until the MGT study is done, and then we'll use those numbers as noted by the MGT study as our goals.
I want to ask our executive director if we can do that with the city.
Or what can
We can craft a clause and ask the city if they would be willing to accept it. I would point out that the city, in this agreement, it already states the city is an independent entity and is obligated to follow their own rules and procedures. That being an established rules and procedures, they're already obligated to follow it anyway. So it's de facto in the agreement that the city's going to follow their own purchasing and procurement procedures under this agreement because they are independent and not an employee of the CMPA or an agent.
No, I don't see that. In this situation, they are not agreeing with the covenant. She's made it really clear. This is something that the PM board is putting in a contract agreement. I don't care if they're the same. It just happens to be that they're the same because that's the only thing we have that we both can agree right now. Anything other than that, we can't agree. So I'm just trying to meet in the middle, and it just happens to be that we're using those numbers that we have. So it has to be in both places. I hear what you're saying.
Mr. Baker.
Is the agreement that we're talking about one that's going to come back to us at a future meeting? Are we attempting to adopt an agreement today?
Well, we were trying to get this part done, which has placeholders also for the fee structure and stuff like that.
We are.
Yes. Dr. Jones.
Is it time for questioning?
Well, I don't have a second, and I'm not sure.
Oh, for Ms. Carter's motion. I will second that.
And just for discussion, if you'll amend your motion also that I mentioned there's a couple little budget items that might need to be tweaked with that we're making a motion to approve based on the language you added and maybe some minor budget changes. And then a second. Let me call Ms. Johnson. She's been patiently waiting back there, and I assume you want to speak on this subject. Eleanor Johnson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to say that the city, don't we apply our goals and aren't we committed to affirmative action? The city itself. Is the city binded by affirmative action? Well, I'm just asking whoever can answer that question.
Quite the law stuff.
Because
the city can't do preferential hire.
But you do follow the.
I assume somewhere it says.
Because when you go online, city government, county government has the affirmative action logo. So what I'm asking is, does the city honor that in their hiring practices? So my concern from the very beginning is that when we talk about inclusion, that we're not just talking about people of color, African Americans, and we're not just talking about minimum wage jobs either. We're talking about the development of the park, like she says, all inclusive. Why is it always hard for us to commit to including everyone? Whatever subject we're on, when we get to this part, we have long debates of commitment. And that's what I'm so troubled about the city of Pensacola. We're dodging, we're ducking, we're running, and we just never nail it.
Now, I'll respond a little to your question, if I may, since she's looking
Councilman
hard at me.
No, I'm not. I'm just looking this way. I'm not looking at you particular, but
You're looking at her. That's good.
Anyway, the city does do affirmative action and such, but I think the covenant was beyond that. It was saying, well, let's not just look at the applicants for this. Let's try and get the number of minority applicants up so that we can be more likely to choose them when we do. And the city, federal law, et cetera, I'm not a lawyer, this is my you'd ask someone more knowledgeable than I, but basically, the city can't say, we need to increase. Now, the city does outreach and things like that, but it's not, it can't be as bound by the covenant as this board can because of federal law. Mr. Geralds knows some stuff, too.
Thank you. And I hate to interrupt. I know I'm not on the committee, but I'm here to listen, and I'll go ahead and answer that question really fast. And the question was whether or not the city, county, and others adhere to affirmative action. And I would say to that, to respond to that, that if that were true, we wouldn't be having a disparity study in the first place. So the answer to your question is no. We don't act right. That's why we're having the disparity study. So the explanations that you may hear as to how we do things, the disparity study will tell us exactly what we've been doing. But the need for the disparity study in the first place was due to the inequities that exist. Thank you. That answers your question.
And on that note, if we were to look at, I mean, we don't need a disparity study for our citizens to know that there's a disparity, and especially in City Hall. Okay, so my concern is, why can't we just understand that there are competent people, minorities as well, that can help make this park a success, and why we can't do the right thing by committing to reaching outside of whatever the city is bound to, whether it's numbers, percentages, or financial. But my concern is that our minorities not just have jobs, $9 an hour jobs cleaning up the park, is that we have some input in terms of the park making profits and some input in terms of making decisions on whether the park is successful or not. And it disturbs me that we spend 2 to 3 hours almost every other meeting when it comes to a disparity study or EBO, where we just cannot just say, yes, we're going to do this and just move on with it. So I have an issue here, and why we can't make, why the city can't make a recommendation to the CMPA board to honor the covenant. So then the city's not necessarily making a commitment to be in that particular situation, but you're making a recommendation that the board honors the covenant that was created. And when we look at equal business opportunities, we don't support people that come, black or white, if they have unique ideas. We don't support them. We don't give them the support. We don't respond back to them. Ms. Johnson hasn't gotten a formal letter or anything after investing her time, after looking for real estate. She's still interested in this community, but we've got to do better all the way around. So why do we have a covenant if we cannot make a commitment to make this park work for everyone?
Ms. Scott, thank you, Ms. Johnson.
I was just going to ask if Ms. Carter could restate her motion, because
I've got it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, as I recorded it, the motion is to approve the agreement with authorizing the chairman to make minor budget amendments and to add the city's SBE goals into the contract until the MGT study is complete and new city policy set.
Dr. Jones, second that.
I didn't think it was to approve it. I thought there was just a motion to add language. Is that not correct? It doesn't matter.
What do you mean by approve?
Pardon?
Approve this contract.
You said approve this contract.
With the corrections and additions.
Okay, well, I'm open with it not being approval, whatever it takes, but I got a question, Chair.
No, that was your motion, and
Yeah.
you second the
Right,
approval.
right.
Yeah.
To add the language.
To add the
Correct.
language, yes.
We would be approving this in concept, and we still have got to add, after Councilman Johnson and the operations committee get together and work out some fee structures, working with the city, and approve that. That'll come back to us at the March meeting, and then hopefully we've got our final contract and we can get that out on the street. We've been very careful, and I'm glad. This park's going to be here a long time. We don't need to shoot ourselves in the foot coming out of the block about what we charge for different things and then have to change it and have people committed to think they're bringing in a concert for X amount of money, and then we've changed our structure. So we're we're working through that. It's taken longer than we thought, but hopefully by the March meeting that we put that to bed, and we knew that this was coming. And then as you get walking down the street, Dr. Jones, and somebody wants to know what they can put the dog show on in the park, you can have something to look at.
I'll have the date for them exactly.
Sir?
I'll have the date for them exactly.
Yes, you'll know what to do.
I'm sorry.
So that's where we are right now, Ms. Carter?
Yeah, I just want to amend the motion to make sure that it's accountable to the Equal Business Opportunity Committee for monitoring, because that would be the only accountability piece that we would have that until such time that we have concrete numbers.
Well,
so it needs an accountability piece to
You'll
that
be
motion.
monitoring it, just as always. Mr. Smith?
I just have a couple comments. We've gotten a lot of emails the last day or so to read items like the CR report. I read that, the EBO report. We got the tax report a while back. I looked at that. We got this agreement yesterday. I haven't had a chance to thoroughly look at this, and it seems like our number one goal should be opening up the baseball park on the 5th, and 5th of April, and we waste a lot of time doing things that relate to the June date. And I have now that you mentioned we're going to vote on this, I still have concerns about the money. When we got the replies to the request for proposal, there were some vendors willing to pay us to do some of this, and we chose the city. And you look at Article 6 payments, we're going to pay the city $248,000 at one time, $541,000 another time, $256,000. Do we have all this money? I mean, we're going to sign this contract, and I just don't see you rushing through something like this when there's a lot of money, and we know we have money challenges, and we chose the city. The city, in my view, was never the best way of going on this money-wise. And I just wonder, I'm not signing this, but do we have this money where we're going to be able to meet these obligations with the city?
I hope we do.
Okay.
Now, in answer to your question, Ms. Smith, that was kind of flippant. I apologize for that. I know Councilman Johnson's on deck. It really comes down to, and there's some numbers I want to continue to massage, someone less than 500,000, but it's going to be from, we're getting our best guess out there of what it's going to cost to run this park. And, we're going to get parking revenue coming in. We're going to get revenue off the amphitheater that we got to work on. We're going to get revenue, hopefully, off the stadium on non-baseball events. We've got advertising we're working on as we speak that'll come to us that hopefully will put all that in. We're hoping, this is going to be a great asset for the public, and we're hoping that there's no more public dollars going into it, even though, a lot of money goes into other parks, but we think we've got enough revenue sources here that but it's going to break even. We've got a budget. You've got a budget here showing how we came up to this. Nicole's done a great job of balancing this back and forth and trying to get to where we need to be to make this work, and we sure hope it does. Some of those payments are together, but at the bottom line, we think it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 to run that yearly. Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was going to actually ask Mr. Asmar to get up and give us an example of Article 6, how that would kind of work, but I was trying to wait until we got through this discussion that was brought forth by Ms. Carter. When we're ready for that discussion, I'm going to ask Mr. Asmar or someone from the city if they can kind of walk through Article 6. So when our current discussion and that motion is ran to ground, then maybe we can get Mr. Asmar to come up and kind of give us an example of how this is going to work. Thank you.
And I will say this to the board. Mr. Smith has questioned. Some of this draft has been out for a little while, and I don't know if it was actually sent to the board. I know Mr. Page had it because he called me about it, so it's been out there somewhere. And maybe I took for granted people are looking at this more than I thought. If you all want to delay this, I'm certainly not trying to move this forward in a quick manner. I know there's some things I want to change in here, as I've already said on the budget, a couple minor things. But I throw that out there. If it's, we still got to come back and put these fees in next month, and we could wait if we needed to wait. Dr. Jones.
It was sent at 5:15 p.m. on Tuesday.
Yesterday, which was the first time they've seen them. When I took, it's been out publicly just because it's been going back and forth, and I guess without sending it to you, you wouldn't have known that. But some people probably have seen it before.
This is still subject to our attorney's review in any case, too,
Pardon?
right? The agreement is still subject to our attorney's review in any case, right?
Well, if we approve it, yes, it'll go there. Still got to get city council approval. I was just trying to get the ball moving in that direction, but it's certainly, like I said, we need to get moving. It's not slowing down Dave, I don't think, in his committee of moving forward with some items, but we do, some things that have to start taking place. Mr. Smith.
It's only 5 pages, so I pretty much read that. My only concern was Article 6, and Councilman Johnson said he was going to handle that. So I wouldn't slow it up just because.
But I certainly
a lot
understand.
of it's not really. I mean, the 3 or 4 pages of where it's different from things we've seen before. The rest of it we've seen before. The city summary and all that.
The previous chairman's tried to shove stuff down y'all's throat. I'm not going to do that.
Thank you.
That was said with a laugh, Mr. Page. It was a joke. So at this point, do you want to call up?
I'd like to, yeah. And if we need to try to work some kind of language that is acceptable with Ms. Carter's issue, I mean, I don't mind. I can meet any time. So if we need a little bit more time to get her satisfied on that, I don't mind, meeting again at some point. We can put that to bed. It's fine. But I would like to get Mr. Asmar up here to discuss and give us examples of Article 6, how this will kind of work a little bit, or Mr. Barker, whichever. Mr. Chair, I'm fine with either.
All right, thank you, Councilman Johnson. We got Mr. Asmar approaching the mic as we speak.
I'll have some questions of Mr. Flaherty later also.
All right, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Johnson, Article 6, it's the payment. The numbers that are in here mirror the responses the city provided you in the RFP process. Basically, the city will perform the work and then invoice you for that work pursuant to the scope of services that we responded to. So if you'll look back and you want to know what we responded to, they are the exhibits to the agreement. So I'm not sure. I mean, we will provide you an invoice, tell you what we did for that particular month, and then, of course, payment would be made within 30 days. And we also made sure that the payments coincided when you expected to receive your revenues from the team and other events. So, obviously we were working with you with regards to the monetary transaction.
Dr. Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Asmar, I don't understand all these numbers. You said in paragraph 2, the city will pay $541,054 for services set forth. Then they should pay $248,945 in number 1, and in number 2 should pay no more than $256,054. What is the difference in the two?
Yeah, Dr. Jones, number 1, the $248,945 is for public works scope of services. Remember, there was 2 responses. Right. One was for maintenance, and one was for management of the public improvements. Number 1 speaks to the maintenance. So that figure is a straightforward figure not to exceed on an annual basis. Okay. Number 2 is the responses from neighborhood services, which refers to as the management of the public improvements. And if you recall, Mr. Flaherty suggested to you that he thinks he can collect in any given 1 year, based on the fee structure which you'll adopt next month, about $248,000 a year. So that revenue that you get will reduce the 541, if you see that in paragraph 2, right, so that your subsidy, potential subsidy, would be $256,054. The more revenue we get, the less that subsidy. So all revenues that we're able to produce will reduce that subsidy. So in any given fiscal year, you shall not pay more than 256,054, and that's what the language suggests.
But what if your projected revenue is less than projected? Who makes up the difference?
The city would have to make up the difference.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, it's obviously, Mr. Flaherty will be held accountable, just like any other vendor that you contract with. Not him personally.
So, Mr. Asmar, is it correct to say if an event was held in a given month and revenues were at or exceeded the expenses, the CMPA would not get a bill that month for entertainment?
Well, yes. I think the way we do it is any revenues that were expected would be reduced from the invoice, so that your first full month, you know, the first month, if there was no, you would have a full invoice, but then, Mr. Barker is going to do the accounting side of it, so you'll see how much we took in on your behalf as your agent and how much you were obligated, less the expenses, and so that would be the payment, if any.
Councilwoman Pratt.
Thank you. Staying on that for a minute. So one question I have is, I read about, I think it's Yankee Stadium, where they have a contract. I think it's the city contracts to somebody else, and any profits they have, they pay back to the city. Well, curiously, it's the best maintained stadium in the world, because any profits they just keep and put into maintenance. What it's a very confusing thing to be sitting here, half city council, half CMPA, but if I'm trying to be CMPA and I'm contracting with entity X, what incentive does the entity with whom I'm contracting have to help me reduce how much I have to pay? So in what way does the city have an incentive to keep their costs down and increase their profits? Because the other way we could do it is the city could start spending a lot and making a lot of profit, and the CMPA still would pay the $256. How do we?
No.
Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does, Dr. Pratt, and we wrestled with that. It's kind of like the SMG contract that the city has. How do you pay for? And I think let's talk in practical terms. You're hiring the city to promote the amphitheater pursuant to a rate structure that you adopt. Okay. So you are suggesting that the city is going to go and book 5 or 6 events and earn, and we've said to you that we believe we can earn $248,000. If we don't make $248,000, we're going to have to eat it. The city, the vendor, just like any other contractual vendor. So what you're asking is, well, I want you to make more than that to reduce the 256,054, and what incentive? And there isn't anything in here. I mean, we wrestled with that. I'm not sure what kind of language we could come up, because, we're a city, we're.
It's screwy. I understand.
And so, our thoughts with this, Dr. Pratt, is the city and the CMPA have really never operated a baseball stadium. We have really never operated an amphitheater. We really never operated at Maritime Park. Part of the goals that the mayor suggested, and the reason why he encouraged department directors to respond competitively, is the city is really good about keeping records. And it's transparent in the sense that it's public records. So our hope is to do a 3-year contract so that there is some history that shows an accurate picture of what it really takes to run such a significant venue. And then it's our hope that there will be other vendors out there who would come in 3 years or 2.5 years when y'all put this back out and utilize the history that we have to maybe, create a more competitive, which is the incentives that I think so we're trying to get there, but when you're looking at an April 1st date, and it's not June, it's April 1st that you need a manager, you need someone for parking April 1st. And so while I certainly can appreciate the fact that you need time to review this agreement, please understand it still has to go to the city council, and they have to accept it. They may not. I mean, that's still a possibility out there. So, I don't want to rush you. I want to answer any and all your questions as very open and, as we can. We kept it very simple and, based on the RFP that was already been gone through, have gone through. We're also very, since we do your finances anyway, it's kind of easy for us to do the bookkeeping. So I'm sorry I can't answer your question, but I understand where you're going.
Dr. Jones, I'm sorry.
A few more things. On that, when you were describing Article 6 with the first question, one of the things you said was not to exceed. And, it talks about how it's going to be, invoices will be sent, and then it says, then number one, the CMPA shall pay the city $248.40 at the end. Would it make sense for this board to include not to exceed in there, in a sense that then we can say, there's no point in just implying it if you can actually write that. I think if we're implying that it's a not to exceed, then we should put that. And then I guess this might help. Part of my question is then in number 2 to write the CMPA shall pay the city a not to exceed the 541, which includes somehow the profits of the when people rent out the stadium or the amphitheater or whatever, the fees, as well as our direct cash payments. Could we clarify it with that kind of language? And then I had a couple more.
Right, Ms. Passmore? I mean, that's what we were talking about.
It sounds like the intent, but I'm just trying to make it
No,
clear.
I mean, I don't think it changes. I mean, we tried to write that in the last sentence of paragraph 2. This amount shall be reduced by revenues, and as described in the proposal, in no event shall the CMPA be required to pay to the city more than $256 of the 541.
Right, but I guess I'm saying that the entire monetary contribution of the CMPA, including the check we write as well as the fees we stand to gain, will not exceed 541.
I can put that in there.
Sure.
The CMPA shall pay to the city not to exceed, or not to exceed 541,000. I'll put that in there somehow.
Yeah, and in number 1 as well. I just think that would make it clearer on what's going on. Next question was, what is the renewal, the termination on this? I couldn't find a date when we would relook at this whole contract.
Article 2, page 2. I'm sorry, Article 5, page 2.
Okay, so it's a 3-year contract.
Yes, ma'am.
I was flipping through it after the great dental health field trip I went to today, so I didn't get a full
Pardon that?
reading.
Flipping through what?
I was just, sorry, I was just saying I didn't really read it thoroughly. And then I had one more, which was subcontracting. As I read, city as authorized agent, I guess, would be where subcontracting would be. And so in this case, I read it as the city can buy materials and supplies and maybe have someone stage an event, but it's not they can't sublease, subcontract this out in terms of any other maintenance or any of that would be performed by the city, as I read it.
Councilwoman Pratt.
Unless I've missed a line.
It does state the city can subcontract it out. Services to be provided by the city or their subcontractor.
Where's that one? 'Cause I'm looking.
While he's looking for that, I want to clarify that I know this board at one time talked about doing a shorter contract with the city. The city, they wanted 5 years, y'all recall earlier, and we kind of came in on 3 as they gear up and buy equipment. It was understandable.
Article 3, first paragraph, Dr. Pratt, scope of work. These services are to be completed by the city and any subcontractors.
And do we have any approval for subcontracting? I mean, it seems to me as I read it that the city can make any agreement it wants with whomever it wants, can subcontract with whomever it wants, and just has to tell us. Is that what this means?
That is correct, Dr. Pratt.
So basically, we have no say anymore once we sign this
Well,
agreement.
and we this in part of our negotiations with this, including the time, because I know this board had asked me to do a shorter period, and that's why I felt like I need to explain that. There were some things that were coming back. We don't need to approve a lot of things. We're going to give them what we want them to do, maintain that park, and if they don't maintain the park the way they're supposed to, and that's one reason I asked the mayor to come in today, that to put that face on it too, then we address it about it. But as it stands, and we got some discussion on that, on approval process, but if they're doing what we ask them to do, then if they need to subcontract that, that's kind of how we ended that. So to answer the question, as of right now, that's correct. They can do the work themselves or subcontract anybody they want to, as long as it meets what our goals are for the park.
I'm done.
All right. Dr. Jones, ahead of you, Dr. Bolden, then we'll come to Dr. Bolden. We got the doctors on this side.
On Article 4, additional services, what might be each additional element proposed by the city? What might those be?
Dr. Jones, that was Mr. Spears' language. We just agreed to it. I don't.
What might those be, Mr. Spears?
Dr. Jones, Article 4, the additional services is the unforeseen clause as we're putting this creature together, and we recognize a need for something that is not necessarily spelled out in the scope of work, either in the response to the RFP by the city or in this the contract language itself, that we have the ability to come back before the board and present those services and look to get those provided.
Fine. One more question. In Article 8 about reporting, it seems like the city shall report to the CMPA on all agreements at a minimum of quarterly, but some of them have to be with the activities, events, materials, supplies. I would like to see that done more frequently than quarterly, to see that we need to know what's going on in the future as well as what's going on in the past. We don't have to put that in the language.
And again, as I said earlier, it got to a point that, and we can do it as often as you want, but to keep every little thing from coming back to the board, that we hire them. If we get together as a board and we don't like the direction it's going, we certainly can change it. And your questioning, I would think, Dr. Jones, is, if it takes a quarter to change it, maybe that's too long. But if we leave the language like that and we start seeing something, we certainly can.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Asmore.
I'll put monthly if that satisfies you, Dr. Jones.
Just to be aware sort of what's coming down the pike in terms of events and all.
We'll put monthly.
If we're meeting monthly. Dr. Bolden.
I've been listening to this discussion very intently, and we still have a motion on the floor, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And I want to ask Mr. Ashmore this. To give you 2 or 3 more days to get with Ms. Carter and to work out this language as she withdraws this. I know we meet a lot, but it would seem to me that this is so important based on what Ms. Eleanor Johnson has said and based on what Councilman Johnson has said. A couple more days is not going to hurt us. Why could we not come back, give you and Ms. Carter a chance, let's say on Monday or Tuesday of next week, so we can move on? Because what I've heard, we are trying to develop some transparency on this issue, and this would allow us to go forward with that transparency rather than keep beating a dead horse every meeting, as Ms. Eleanor Johnson has said. So my question to you would, a couple of days give you a chance, 2 of you to get together and hash this out.
If I thought a solution could be worked out, then I would say yes. But because, and I'm going to say it again with all due respect, the city cannot make any commitment on any preferential treatment until such time there is a finding of fact. And so Dr. Pratt has stated it eloquently as a lawyer, special counsel to the mayor, and as his agent. I'm going to tell you that while the city is committed to its SPE goals, we will continue to do so underneath the policies established by City Council. But as far as meeting the commitments of the EBO program as spelled out in the covenants, the city cannot do that at this time.
I understand that very clearly, but I'll go back to my original question. Why can't the two of you at least attempt to come back with something that will resolve this without you saying that the city is going to commit to preferential treatment? That's all I'm asking. We understand that very clearly. But it seems to me that the two of you ought to be able to develop some type of language that will satisfy this so we can go ahead and vote on this thing in good conscience. That's just my question.
Perhaps, Mr. Carter, were you not satisfied with the language of the SBE language?
Well, I mean, I think what I hear from, I was satisfied with that, and I thought that we had come up with a general solution because you're doing it right now. But you scare me with this position, and you know, I see you being an attorney. I'm a special counsel to the mayor, and we're not going to do that. And she said it right.
Do what?
You're not going to put yourself in a position where you have to commit to something.
Not commit to the EBO covenants. I said, you please don't put words in my mouth. What I said was that the city cannot commit to meeting the EBO covenants because we don't have the findings of fact. We are committed to the SBE goals. We are committed to the MBE goals established by the City Council through its ordinances.
And this motion is adding that to this agreement.
That is what your motion was. We are committed to that. Yes, I have no problem with that particular language at all.
Okay. So I thought that we had moved past it until you made that statement that...
I'm sorry for misunderstanding. You and I are on the same page.
Because I'm trying to move forward. And I think the key to what she's saying is the covenant was supposed to be something beyond that. It has to be something beyond that, Mr. Asmar. I'm asking for help without compromising your position and who you are, because
it has nothing to do with me. It's federal law. All I'm trying to say to you is we will adhere to the city policies of meeting our SBE and MBE requirements that we put out for any RFPs. We are committed to that. By law, we are committed to that. So your language speaks to that, and we will simply add that language that we put out on any RFP in this language, in this document that showed that we are committed to meet those goals.
Okay, those are goals.
All right. Dr. Bolden.
When does the final results from the disparity study come out?
May 29th.
I heard Councilman Gerald say May 20, and now Mr. Asmar saying May 29th. Anything on this issue, Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, would it be pertinent, or would it be, could we call the question on the motion that's on the floor and then continue our discussion about Article 6 and finances? Would that be appropriate to call the question on this motion that's on the floor?
Well, the motion on the floor is to approve this whole thing, and that's what you're calling the question?
Well, we don't have the language that included with the language,
Ms. Carter said, would you read the motion, Mr. Spears?
To approve the agreement with minor budget amendments worked on by the chairman, and to add the city's SBE goals into the contract until the MGT study is complete and new city policy is set.
And didn't you, Mr. Chairman, say in concept, approve in concept?
Well, in that we still got to change, we got to bring the fees into it, but this is the language, other than some tweaking that on the budget, there's a couple of budget items that we're still working on.
So it'd be in concept.
But you're giving me the authority to, I would have the authority to finalize that. I'd make sure that the language is in that Ms. Carter brought up and the final budget, and then it will be back to us with the fee structure when we put that in March.
Mr. Chairman, when you say back to you in March, my plan was to go to the City Council, the first meeting in March for final approval March 8th, so that we're ready by April 1st.
Are you going to have the fee structure in at that point?
Well, the fee structure, the vendor program, and the parking program are separate. They're going to come back to you as part of our scope of services. And so my plan was to bring back the parking plan and the rate structure for you on your meeting in March.
Okay.
But the management agreement, though, could be finalized by you if given the authority, and we can place it on the next city council agenda, which will probably be, I think it's a week from Friday is the deadline.
All right, I'm going to start with Dr. Jones, and then Councilman Brown.
Are you saying that this contract does not cover those areas? They're going to have to come back for approval?
That's correct, Dr. Jones. If you look underneath the scope of service,
Yes, I saw that.
what we did is that based on what we heard from this committee, Article 3, Scope of Work, page 2, second paragraph, we intended that you would probably want to have more involvement in the rental fee structure, the parking plan, and the vendor plan. And so this contract says that pursuant to our provisions, we will create and present to you for approval policies and procedures for the following 3 things. So once you agree to this, then we can start working on it and get it to you before April 1st. And that's why we're trying to, we're trying to help you so that you can respond to the community when you open the doors April 1.
Councilman Pratt.
Yep. Just want to ask a friendly amendment to the motion to include the not to exceed language that we discussed during my questioning, and I apologize that I have to.
That's good. You have to leave. Can you wait while we still have our quorum?
Am I the loser?
Any other things to come before? Ms. Johnson, do you want to address this motion on the floor because I'm about to lose my quorum?
Thank you, Chairman Collier. My recommendation would be that you all, and I think someone brought it forth, that you take time with this information so that it is implemented the proper way, and it not be based on the disparity study alone, because we already have findings and we already know that the city, we're operating at a non-inclusive way for years now. So the disparity study could come back, as Mr. Hawthorne said, with less numbers than what's real. But it's obvious that we need time, even if it's another week or another 2 weeks. But in order to do this thing properly and to get that contract done properly, it appears that you guys need more time. And you need to do some research, because there are cities doing it and are inclusive, and everyone's enjoying their downtown area. So we need to go back and find examples and professionals who can advise how to get it done, how to get the contract stated the way it should be, so that you don't have to keep going back and forth. And I do know that Asmer mentioned that the city is honoring the RFP. Well, that's not true at all, because you wrote an RFP for small minority businesses. We only got one small minority business because we didn't put it out there long enough to get enough responses to have anything to compare it to. So now we're back to the same place we were before Ms. Johnson even applied. And she discussed some of these matters with you before even agreeing to apply in the RFP, of how to make all these entities work and to keep all the citizens happy.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any other discussion before we vote on the motion?
I'm just going to say one thing. I hear what she's saying, and I still don't feel good. It has to be inclusion throughout, and it's with every aspect of our scopes of work, all 5 of them. And so my question to you and the board is my amendment, does it cover that? I mean, do we feel comfortable with that, so that when it comes back, if we want to, like Dr. Bolden said, make any changes, tweaking it, or will our decision today is done, is over with? I mean, I guess
I think we've heard loud and clear, and I'm right on your page, and I've heard that this is the only language we can get in there that's legal. But I've also heard that when this study comes out, when it does become legal, to right-side anything that needs to be righted, that we can do that. And we've said that's what we want to happen. And I've heard the city manager, the chief of staff say that that's what's going to happen. So I think we've got that on record.
Okay, so we can, as a board, because we do still control the project, bring them back in and take a look at it
Absolutely.
at any time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we've got a motion on the floor. Any further discussion?
The motion is to call the question, sir.
Well, I'm just going to go right to the motion. I'm not going to call the question because I don't think you should hear any other discussion. If that's all right with you, Dr. Jones. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. Councilman Pratt, thank you for staying for that. There's a gentleman right behind Nicole that's, sir, did you want to speak? Nicole, ask him, he's got a card. No, man standing up right there. Right there. I thought you had a card, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a card, but I didn't fill it out.
All right, thanks, sir.
Maybe for A and B, they could be asked. Just apply beyond the written report if they have it. They keep the written reports.
Moving ahead, we've got updates and for a design team in the COR report, and we'll discuss extension outside of what I'm about to say. If there's anything beyond your written report, I've been asked by Mr. Baker, Vice Chair, to hit that instead of going over the whole written report unless this board wants further details. It means make it fast.
Thank you. Well, yeah, everything is happening so quickly on the site. This report was drafted maybe Monday afternoon, and it's outdated already. But anyway, items to note. We had the final walkthrough on the field this morning with the design team's field consultant. That went very well. Turf grass is established amazingly well, and he made the comment we can play baseball on this turf grass tomorrow. The roots have established so well. A few minor punch list things on the field, but nothing major. So that is very good news and a good milestone that field has been basically signed off on. Other than that, we can see the sod going down every day on the development parcels. The street trees are going up down to Villiers Street. They'll be continuing down Museum Drive. Flagpoles went in. Says the formwork in the up above on the outfield seating berm area is being formed. Actually, they poured it yesterday, so that's moving on. The lights were commissioned. We know they've come on, but they were actually commissioned last week. They were tested. All the lumens were tested by the Musco company. That all went very well. The amphitheater schedule, the bricks, the skirt wall below the stage, all the brick is on that. That's coming on. The floor slabs are being formed in the back of house and the stage. So, everything's moving on very well.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Bob, did you have something to address on this?
Yes, please make sure that the flags are U.S. made.
Make sure what? I'm sorry.
Flags are U.S. made.
Any questions of Mr. Dana? We've had a request for extension of services from COR. This has come before us. As you know, do they have a copy of that? Not yet. It's being passed out now. This is an update on this. It's not something we need to vote on today. I would like to come back to the board after meeting with the COR representatives and see what we need to do if that's the board's wishes. You have any comments on that?
Well, I guess generally the usual that when we approve additional expenditures at this point, we've got to identify the source of funds.
Right, and I'm not going to approve any expenses. I'm just going to try to come up with something, then get back to the board. Is that okay? Y'all want to take this up now on the extension of services?
I agree with your plan of action.
I was out of town yesterday. This came up yesterday on these services, and I just want to get my arms around it and see where we go. Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Mr. Baker. We don't have the money. Where's this money going to come from? So I'm real concerned about the $78,000. I know to date, didn't we just recently have didn't we bring their contract up $400,000 here just a couple of months ago? I don't have those notes somewhere, but I think three something, 387 or 97. I just got a real problem. I don't know where this money's coming from. Just kind of echoing what Mr. Baker says. If we could even, if I even would agree to pay this, where's the money coming from? Thank you.
Any other discussion? And that's kind of what I'm saying at this point. I'd like to meet with them and just kind of see where we are on this process at this point.
I mean, when you're talking to them, could you see if they would complete this as community service to the park, maybe, possibly?
Is that a motion? We don't have a quorum, but you still can make it. They're sitting here. I don't see any of them smiling at this point. Charles is smiling now.
Well, we paid them to date $800,000, I believe, approximately. Correct? Is that right, Mr. Spears?
Mr. Chairman and Councilman, you have a full budget update in your materials, and I would refer to that for the exact number.
All right. I'm going to have a real problem with this, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we will, Mr. Spears will get back to you one way or the other on this this issue. It might be something we send you. All right, with that being done with administration, I've asked Ed, you've got a letter before you from the Blue Wahoos, and I've asked Ed to read this into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is from the Pensacola Blue Wahoos dated today. Dear Chairman Merrill, thank you for your continued leadership of the CMPA Board of Trustees. It's hard to believe that after 6 years, we are now only weeks away from playing baseball in downtown Pensacola. As you know, I have often discussed, as you and I have often discussed, the success of the Maritime Park rests not only on successful completion, brick and mortar project, but also on a host of opportunities and amenities that give the community access to the water, economic impact, and a great entertainment experience in the multi-use stadium. Our citizens will feel justified in their investment if we assure them a world-class place to live, work, and play. It is for this reason I am pleased to announce an additional investment into the stadium by the Blue Wahoos. Under our current budget agreement, the stadium includes $2.1 million for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, FF&E. Based on my conversations with the Blue Wahoo staff, it has become clear that this budget is not sufficient to guarantee fans and citizens who come to the stadium a quality experience. The industry standard for projects like this is for concession companies to negotiate equipment costs into their agreement with the team. These equipment costs are significant and often put the team or the stadium owners, in this case the taxpayers, in a position of very limited control over quality because they do not actually own the equipment. As the Blue Wahoos have publicly stated, we do want to do things right by offering a fantastic experience to the fan and a return on the investment to the taxpayers. So in order to guarantee a quality experience for the fans and citizens, the Blue Wahoos will be contributing an additional $500,000 to the CMPA to be allocated to the FF&E budget. This additional funding will allow the stadium to be fully furnished with the equipment necessary to provide the citizens an exceptional experience at games or events, and will provide the taxpayers an additional $500,000 in assets to the stadium. Rishi and I are also pleased with the progress being made in downtown Pensacola. The park is making progress, and the stadium will be a fantastic place for baseball and other events. Thank you again, and thanks to the members of CMPA for working so hard on making this project a reality. Sincerely, Quint Studer.
I applaud too, and I asked Mr. Spears to read that in the minutes, only because this was talked about a while back. We had no more money, obviously. I know Mr. Studer and the team was talking to vendors that were going to come in and put all the equipment in, that then it would be their equipment. This is going to be our equipment, and I kind of, you can kind of liken it to, you have a rental house and somebody wants you to fix the kitchen and you say you're not going to do it, and they finally said, you know what, I'm going to go put $200,000 in the kitchen. It's still your house, and they're not reducing the rent or anything else. He wanted to do that, and basically he just enhanced our property by $500,000, and my hat's off to him. I really thought they were going down the path of bringing in a vendor that was going to put in the equipment, that would own the equipment, and he went the other way, and that becomes ours once he puts that in. So for the record, I appreciate Quentin Rishi and the Blue Wahoos for enhancing the Citizens Stadium. Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, I want to echo that too. I do think it needs to be noted that they're making another $500,000 investment to this park that becomes a property of ours, and I think that's extremely significant. I just hope that they are on schedule and got this FF&E ordered and installed. I know that they're aware that opening day is just around the corner, so I'm sure that they have got this done. Any report, Mr. Spear, on that? Is it online? I mean, I had heard that we were a little behind on that, but or they were, I should say.
My understanding is a lot of the equipment is at loading docks waiting to be brought to the property, and as soon as we turn over spaces to the team, they are filling it with their equipment.
Good, thank you.
And that was my first reaction. Well, it's a great thing. I was like, I hope we're still going to have hot dogs April 5th. All right, you have anything else under administration? Ed?
The budget's at your place. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And if no more questions of Ed, we'll move along to Design Development Committee.
No committee meetings, sir.
Any questions, Dr. Jones? Operations Audit Committee, Councilman Johnson.
No report at this time. Thank you.
Any questions, Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, when is their next meeting, do you know?
Mr. Spears, do we have a meeting scheduled?
We will need an Operation Audit Committee meeting prior to the next board meeting, so it should be the second week in March, if not the day or two before the Wednesday board meeting, third Wednesday.
Thanks.
And anybody listening or remaining in the audience that will be where the fees are somewhat discussed, along with the input from Dave Flaherty and his committee on how we want to end up there. I appreciate that. Anything else, Councilman Johnson?
No, thank you.
EBO, Audra Carter.
Thank you, Chair. You have on your desk the EBO report, and there's been some changes, and I want to thank George for being more specific on some. It is a 2-month report, which concerns me, and it kind of ties very nicely into the marketing aspect of it. I'm in a dilemma. While George is doing a great job finishing up the issues for the contract, for the construction part of it, there's a lot to be done on the outreach side of it, and we simply do not have dollars. I just found out in the last EBO meeting that the $3,000 that was given to me by the board, I thought we agreed that we did, and I have the budget in the packet of what I spent it on. George is not able to give, that money came out of George's budget and not from somewhere else, so there's no other money anywhere else for me to do the other things I need to do. And so I'm concerned about that, and I asked the board for their guidance on that matter.
This is over and above the $3,000 that we approved, and you have some other expenditures you want to make now?
Yeah, it's the same marketing contract they gave you back 3 months ago, and now we're looking to move to the next level. If you remember, I gave you it for November, December, and January. We've completed them, and the workshops yield some really good results. However, when it came to the second and the third, we could see that the attendance went down because I didn't have any marketing dollars, because we're also doing the progress report, which you also have in front of you. So, I'm a dilemma about how to move forward, given the information, and some very important information was discussed here that would really help people be prepared that it's not the 5th, it's actually in June, and here's the things they need to do and get in place for it to be able to take advantage of the opportunities, and I don't have any money to do that. And so we talked about that in the Equal Business Opportunity Committee and decided to come here and discuss it with the full board because we couldn't come up with a solution to that situation. You want to hold that thought until I get finished?
Joe.
And there are a lot of things in the report that we don't have answers to, and I'm very concerned that we're at March, and I don't have any accountability that I can give the board. I don't have the numbers from the jobs that's still outstanding, and if you remember, I gave them you guys had me come up with a form. The form went out 2 or 3 months ago. I don't have anything on that. Can't get that done.
Is that Mr. Hawthorne?
I don't know who it is. I know Mr. Dana.
The new form that is out, it was sent to you. We're going back out on Monday in the pay app section So there is a new form. They did not accept the old form. So we're going with a new form that is going for the February pay app area as part of the pay application process. And you should have one in your email.
As of today, an hour before I came in the meeting, I never received anything from anybody.
As soon as I get out of here, I will send it to you again. But there's a new form that goes out into the February pay application process. So with this next there, we're requesting to them that they again, and I've shortened the form to 4 questions. One question is your average number of employees on Maritime Park. The second question is the makeup of those employees. Third question is the duration of their time out there. Fourth question is the average pay amount on there. 4 questions. So it's very clear, very concise, and it's hopefully they'll respond to that.
Well, here's the challenge. We've been looking for this information 6 months, and 3 months I've given you the form, and I'm just now finding out today that you did a new form, and we're almost at March. Let me just get finished. And I can't put numbers or anything about accountability on anything in your report, and those numbers are real important for me to even finish the progress report, and that concerns me that we're 2 weeks to 2 months behind, and you want to be paid for your services, and I need those things, everything that we need to tie up for the equal business opportunity, statistical data and everything, I need it before we finalize any payment to anybody, or else there's no reason for him to give it to me. Like, I'm at the 9th hour now,
Well,
and I don't know how to do it.
Did you address this in the EBO committee, Ms. Carter?
No. There was no report at the EBO committee. It was just sent to me today.
Okay. But
So,
if you,
I know what you want me to do, go back and address it. I will. But I'm just saying that I don't want the 31st to come and we spend all the money and giving it and I can't get the things I need.
but I mean, have you told Mr. Hawthorne that in the committee?
Yeah, I did tell him
in your
that you need
committee.
to bring me something, and he did bring it to me based on yesterday.
Dr. Jones?
Mr. Hawthorne, you said you sent it to them. Who is them that you sent your question to?
The subcontractors have had a filing. Each one of the subcontractors, what she's requesting is that we have a subcontractor worksheet that they give a report back on their labor forces. That is no provision within the contract that they are under or under the EBO grant for that reporting. So we're on a voluntary basis. We're going back again, looking for very specific information in a broad scheme of things so that we can get some compliance. And as far as this progress report, I would suggest that we shouldn't be talking about finalizing a progress report until we come to the end of the program, because the end of the program is going to be March 31st. That's when we have the final payouts. That's when we'll have the final numbers. And trying to rush something prior to March 31st is just, it's not accurate.
Okay, and I appreciate it, but you want to be paid, I'm sure, up to April, and I'm saying it, I will ask the board not to pay, and you and I can get together and get this until I have the numbers on everything you were supposed to do from the EBO, which includes if workforce contract meetings that you have. You said you have a second group of people. Were they certified? I mean, I need all of that before we wrap up and pay anybody anything. I want all of that so we can send it in to report it in. After the fact is not going to help us. We need that beforehand. And that's all I'm asking you for, and that's all I've ever asked you for.
Well, I guess it's the end of the truth. So that I've asked and given you what is in my contract. I have paid the amount that was not supposed to be paid. I mean, $3,000 came out of my services, and I've done everything and over and above and beyond. You asked me for what is in there, and it's in there. Now, if you want something separate and different, tell me what you would like, and I will do that.
Okay, so we can move forward, Chair. I will sit down with George, and together we will get everything we need. And I will only ask that we pay him for his services once all that information is gotten, so we can put this to bed. I will get with him and make sure we do that.
Mr. Baker?
I'm just concerned that sounds awfully vague. There's so much involved with out there operating the park and stuff on a daily basis involved with this contract. So we have spent untold hours at these committee meetings over the desire that we wish we had through the park starting 5 or 6 years ago, every dollar that had been spent, how much to each minority and how much it's information that we wish we had, but it's absolutely impossible to get. So we've talked an awful lot about that, and I think it's really striving for something that's impossible to produce.
Dr. Jones.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Hawthorne how his television project was going.
Well, as of this point, that is actually on hold again. My budget was reduced $3,000, and so essentially, after this, in this last month, I'm doing 120% of the work for about 40% of the pay. So, and I will continue at 120% of effort. So, that's where we are. At this point, it's still on hold until I can get some private sponsors for it.
I appreciate that, doing work for no pay.
And we appreciate it too, Dr. Jones. Ms. Carter, can you get with Mr. Hawthorne on that? And I've said before, and I know sometimes you got to come here, and we don't like doing committee work in here, but I understand where you're coming from. But if you could get with him, and then get with Mr. Spears on findings, and he can get with me if necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me.
Dr. Jones, I'm sorry.
I attended Ms. Carter's first workshop, and I want to tell you it was fantastic. And she is doing exactly what we, with this committee, should have been doing a long time ago. She had people there. She had Mr. Flaherty there. They had a lot of good questions and a lot of good possibilities, and I think it was really super, and I'm sorry I didn't attend the rest of it.
Well, and that's the problem is when you guys gave me the $3,000 to do that, and we've done what you asked me to do, Chair. I didn't know it was coming out of George's budget. I mean, I thought it was coming from somewhere else, and I thought I'd get the $7,000 because, this draft, a lot of people really worked hard on it so we could get it to some place where you can give me input, but I got stuff I need to do and I have no money. So I didn't know it was going to come out of George's pay, but I do know that he considered to give me $500 a month for 4 months to help with the $7,000 that I wanted in addition to, and now I can't do it because this dilemma, and we need to continue on this good path that we started, not start and stop. And I just feel like I am always being given a job and not enough money or authority to do it, and it's frustrating.
Dr. Bolden.
To follow up Ms. Carter's comment, I was also surprised yesterday, too, that George had to take this out of his budget, because when we left that meeting where this was allocated, I thought we were going to get it not from George, but from somewhere else. So I'm just asking Ed a question. Why did it come from George's do that, and if we don't have enough money to do it, if we need another $4,000, for example, where would it come from?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Bolden, when the board approved the $3,000, they instructed me to, quote, find it in the budget.
That's where you found it.
And I approached George and asked if he would partner with Audra and fund this activity, and he was very generous and agreed to do that. We offered to either do it $3,000 in one lump sum or to spread it out over the next 3 months, and he asked to do it all at one time to make the full money available. He did ask for the expenditures to run through him, and there were some issues with that, and we said no. Ms. Carter would like to lead her program, so we would just withhold the money and pay the expenditures directly through Ms. Carter as she provided invoices, which we've done to this point in time. So that truly was a partnership of them coming together and a creative way to find the money without impacting the construction budget. At this point in time, if you instruct me to find additional funds, you've got to tell me what not to build across the street. It's to that point. And that's why we provided the line item budget for you. We can take away benches, we can take away bike racks. We can't take away streetlights any longer, they're installed. We can't take away flagpoles, they're installed. So the flexibility on this project, I wouldn't say superfluous funds or surplus funds, but non-committed funds have been committed, and we are literally 30 days away, almost 45 days away from being complete, with the exception of the back of house structure at the amphitheater. There are no more discretionary funds that are available to be diverted to any program At this point in time, we just talked about the COR issue, and if the COR needs those additional funds, which I personally agree they do, because we're extending their contract beyond March 31st with the back of house. It's a brand-new structure, was not envisioned, and now the contract's going through June 1st. That is additional work. It is going beyond their original contract. So those discussions need to be had, but we've advised we would support your position. You just got to show us where that money's going to come from.
Not to debate this with you in all openness and fairness to you, I don't think we would have the expertise to even look at this and say where we could get it from. But just to give an anecdote, we're not asking for 10, we're not asking for 20. We're going to ask for approximately $4,000, and we can spend money on every conceivable thing, but this ties into what we've just been talking about, the transparency, following through, and we've had good response, and Dr. Jones has even commented on that. And it seems like now we got to drop the ball on the community again over $4,000, saying, okay, we can't do anything else. We got some more information to give you, but we can't give it to you over $4,000. I know that's a significant amount when you don't know where it's going to come from, but it seems like to me that with your creative budgetary skills, something ought to be done rather than going across the street taking some money away for $4,000. To me, it seems utterly ridiculous.
I certainly appreciate the compliment of the creative skills. Our smoke and mirrors, I'm afraid they've looked behind the curtain at this point in time. But we are running out of opportunities. And you know, if you instruct us to, once again, we'll bring a recommendation to you. We were creative the last time. I don't know if George is going to be open to being creative again. And that fund is only for one other month. The services for the EBO program are through the end of March. So once again, we're to the end of that contract as well. So we'll find it if we need to, but I'll bring those recommendations back to you.
And I'd say this, and then
Ms. Carter, let me get you a hold. Councilman Gerald's been patiently standing at the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My request today will not cost anyone any money. So that should
Thank
put you all at ease. However, I looked at the EBO report today, and I see a new name has been added, and I'm not sure who that person is. It's just the last name. But the thing that has concerned me as we move along and as we work with anyone, one of the things that's important is that we have what we call a resume. Not a bio, but a resume of the people who are involved in various projects. I was one of the original architects of the EBO of the covenant when it was first introduced to this community. We have on two occasions, actually two occasions, requested that the EBO coordinator provide us with a resume that will show the background, give us certain kinds of information if we wanted to verify anything, as what a resume does. A bio is completely different. And on two occasions in the EBO meeting, that request has been made. I have consulted with Mr. Fleming on two occasions, and his advice was, in fact, that we have not only a right but a duty to look at those kinds of things when we're working with a company or an individual. And I'm asking the committee at this point, since there's been non-compliance to that request, that if we don't have it, and now the EBO director is rolling over into management and operations at the park and just a whole list of things that they can produce and that they have knowledge of. In the absence of that resume, I'm not sure. I just like to be able to look at it, to see a track record, to see some experience, to see some production that will lead me. Now, today I'm not interested in an excuse as to why we haven't received it or an explanation as to why we have not received it. What I'm asking the board to do on my behalf or on behalf of the EBO committee is that unless we have those documents, not just on the director, but each person listed here, McCrae, Powell, and whoever Powell is, that we have some sort of resume to let us know what skills and capabilities these people bring to the table. This is not an opportunity for OJT or one person running the show, but we do need some documentation on the backgrounds of the individuals involved, and we need it no later than Friday of this week. And if the board can help me with that, then I will be able to understand, because as I indicated, if we're rolling over into park management, push carts, and just a whole litany of things that George has proposed, I would like to see a resume that tells me of his past experience in these areas, and that way I can feel somewhat assured that he has the knowledge and the ability to deliver. I'm concerned about Ms. Audra's concerns, that some of the things that have not been done, and I want to encourage each of you to take a copy of this before you leave today. It is fine to put a report in writing, but it doesn't come with some documentation of percentages and what's actually happened. It just says, I went to the meeting, but it doesn't say who else was there, what did you discuss, what actually happened, and it's too vague for me. If I would like to just indulge the board and their assistance in getting us those resumes and that information that we need to look at the people who are doing this for us to see what is actually going on. And we need that resume as quickly as possible. Friday by noon would be good enough for me.
And I'm at a disadvantage. I walked back in. Well, actually, you talked after I called on you. What resumes are you referring to?
We had asked George Hawthorne for a copy of his resume. Okay. And that's what
Mr. Hawthorne, you have a problem providing a copy of your resume?
I put one together. I provided them a bio that has a very specific outline of wherever I've done, what companies there were, and everything there. If you want me to put in the resume form, I'm not going to get it done by Friday. I'm trying to get 2,000 yards of concrete poured over the next 2 days. So if I can get until sometime next week, if you want me to put in a resume form, that's fine.
I'll put it this way, to make a short story here. Had the request been responded to when it was originally asked for, I wouldn't be at the microphone at this moment.
Understand, sir. What are you doing? What concrete are you trying to get poured?
I'm the one that's helping manage these last, the hardscape guys. We just poured 6,000 yards over the last 2 days. I've got another 1,000 that's going out there right now, and I need to get back over there and look for 2 more trucks by the end of the day. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis.
Excuse me, why are you doing that?
Because we have a minority contractor that doesn't have the experience in this commercial kind of work, and I have the help with the means and methods under technical assistance on the area to make sure that this part stays on contract, on time, on schedule.
Are you doing that on behalf of what we're paying you?
Yes.
The fee?
That's part of what I'm doing for what I'm being paid. I mean, and that's, like I said, over and above.
You're not getting paid from them. You're
No,
through him. Well, we appreciate that. Mr. Hawthorne, you think you can get that done by Monday?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Geralds?
That'll work, but I'll repeat before I leave the microphone, had this been done at the original request or even the second request, I wouldn't be standing here today. Thank you.
Could you share that data with us, Mr. Hawthorne, including the other part that you had prepared earlier?
What other part is that?
You said that you had given them
The bio?
not only a bio you were going to do, but you had provided them
The resume.
with
Thank you.
your background.
Yes, it's
Could you supply it to us, please?
that was, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hawthorne. I appreciate what you're doing out there. Ms. Carter?
Well, I'm concerned about George doing the work because I know he's supposed to be our liaison out there. And we hired someone for concrete. And in his document, it says MHP, concrete work, SE. I don't know what that means. And MHP is also a labor staffing. How are they both? I guess I don't understand why he's having to do it.
You're talking about MHP is with Southeastern as a subcontractor that they provided labor staffing on Southeastern. They also provide some labor staffing, but labor staffing is people that do the actual work. Construction management is making sure the work is being performed on the means and methods that are most productive to get the amount of work in there. That's where they are lacking experience, and that's where the technical assistance is coming in on.
Yeah, but this is concrete work, SE. I see the labor staffing.
That contract is over. That's done.
Yeah, but it's MHP. I thought they were a labor staffing. Are they both?
They are providing labor staffing to MH for Southeastern.
Okay, well, it just says concrete work. It doesn't say labor staffing. So I'm just looking at it so that you don't have to do that and you can do other things. So I'd like to understand that. You and I can talk about that too.
Wait, in your meeting, maybe I'll discuss that as well. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Carter. On the, and thanks for the whole committee. Bob, did you have something to address on this?
No, I want us to go on.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, more than you know. Ms. Carter, I'm going to come back to your marketing thing. I want to finish your report. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I'm just asking for the board to read the draft and send all comments to Ed. We are going to finish that up and have it for you post-haste. Also in the documents is the pie chart. Look at which one you think you want to use. There's 2 of them. And other than the moving forward with the marketing, that's it.
Now I'm going to jump back to that. Dr. Bolden brought up, where Mr. Spears was creative on finding some money before. I know what you originally came forward, and I know that you spent the $3,000. You talked about a longer or more in-depth marketing proposal at that point. Do you have something now that you could give us that you'd like to spend additional monies on right now?
Right now, what we're looking at is the continuation, maybe not of the workshop, of information getting out to the community of the information that went on today. That's really critical, especially if things have changed from the dates of June and the issue with the stadium, especially when it comes to the EBO vendors. A lot of people don't understand that. So I need to get that out. That's a communications thing. But most importantly, when the report is done, we got to figure out how we're going to get it out. And I have to complete that.
I'm trying to get to, if you can come up with for $1,800, I can get this out, and this is what I really need to do, and come up with a compelling thing. I think what I hear some of your committee members here saying that they'd be willing to search again. Is that right, Dr. Bolden?
Okay. So you want me to send it to Ed, and then he'll send it out to the committee?
Correct. Of something that you were probably not going to be able to do everything you wanted to do originally, and you were gracious and methodical on what you could spend your money on. I think you did a good job with that. But we don't have money, as you know. But if you can come up with something that's important and we need to get that done, we look see what we can do.
Okay. Now, the procedure is for me to send it to Ed, and he'll send it out to the committee, and you guys will decide that way, and then let me know?
Please do not send it to the committee members. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else in your committee, EBO? Ms. Carter?
No, sir. No, sir.
Any questions, Ms. Carter?
No, sir.
Thank you. Last, we have the grand opening committee, as we stated earlier. The opening date at this point is June 9th. 99.9% sure that's when we're going to make. And committee's been meeting every few weeks and moving forward with that. I think Dave's gone. I see we still have representatives that are working hard on this, and should be a great event. And we'll just keep you updated. Any questions on that? Great. Anything else coming for the board? We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.